Welcome to our guest episode series of the Present and Powerful podcast, where we explore the inspiring journeys of today's most successful entrepreneurs. I'm your host, Lyndsey Akers, a PR and visibility coach. In this series, we're pulling back the curtain and taking a look at the lives of extraordinary women who have not only built a thriving business, but they're also doing so while raising their families. We'll hear their stories, learn from their experiences, and uncover the strategies and mindsets that have propelled them to where they are today. Get ready to be inspired, motivated, and empowered as we dive deep into the world of these exceptional entrepreneurs who are redefining what it means to be present and powerful in both business and family life. I am so excited to welcome my friend Caitlin Eldridge to the podcast today. Caitlin, I'm so pumped you're here.
Thank you for having me.
You're so welcome. So for those of you watching, Caitlin is a tax expert and a CPA to some of your very favorite female-led brands. Caitlin is a powerhouse mom of five. Caitlin, I'm so excited to introduce you as this new title because people have not heard this yet. You are now the CEO of Prospera Strategy.
Yes,
correct?
I am.
We're going to dive into that so much more in just a few minutes, but I'm so excited for this new venture with you. I know it's a long time coming and something that sets in motion a new chapter for you. And there's a lot to dig into here. So I'm pumped that you're here and certainly on the heels of launching your new company with your partner. What I also love about Caitlin is that she's doing all the things in business. She's so successful, but she's a mom of five and she's a military spouse. Caitlin is not all work and no fun. She's also a perpetual hobbyist. Caitlin, I hear that you are now taking on knitting and crocheting and walking with a weighted vest and reading and all of these things. And I'm very interested to dive into how you fit all of those things in. So welcome to the Present and Powerful podcast, Caitlin.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm so excited to be here.
Oh my gosh, me too. What an insane new chapter you have. For those of you who don't know, Caitlin has a new title. She has a new company, and it is an expansion of your previous business of what you've been doing historically as what I would call a solo entrepreneur. So you want to talk a little bit about your new company, Prospera Strategy, and the fact that you are a co-founder of this one.
Yes. So my partner, Shauna Asper's also a former military spouse. Her husband just transitioned into the airline life. And we have been in contact for years. And so as we dive into like further topics, human design is a big one for me. And we are both projectors. And we both, over the last few years, have invited each other to we see something together. We're just not sure what. In this past December, I had reached my limit on a lot of things and I reached out. I was like, I think this is it. Do you want to do this? And if so, I don't know what it looks like. We're going to be messy. We're going to get this done. But I think we can do this together. And it took a couple weeks between NDAs, financial reviews, and we were hitting the ground running with okay, let's start fresh in January. And then by March, we wanted everyone to be able to know that it existed and we're here and we've expanded our bookkeeping offerings, our tax offerings, and then get to build this amazing firm together. So I'm really excited.
I'm excited for you too. And I think one of the things that I'm noticing as a trend in business right now is that, those of us who started either in 2020 or before, we have, like you said, reached our limit of kind of doing this alone, not because we can't, but because it's a little bit more fulfilling and manageable to do it with a partner and maybe someone who directly complements your strengths and perhaps your weaknesses. And I'm excited for you and also a little jealous because I don't think my hope is to do business alone forever, but can you talk about what has played into kind of this decision and how you and your partner plan to split, divide and conquer?
That's how we started the discussion. What do you want to do? What do I want to do? And we saw it was that complementary. She really loves the systems and the accounting aspect. If I never had to look at another QuickBooks file other than to pull the tax information out, I'd be great. Anytime my bookkeeper emails me, it's this isn't working. I don't want to fix this. This is not in my love language. So we had a lot of that. But the biggest thing is we both saw a bigger future for ourselves of this firm that respected the workers and delivered amazing communication to the clients and a wonderful service and didn't get too big for its britches and allowed us the opportunity to educate and to consult. And we were both stuck kind of at the same revenue level, the same client count, and we weren't getting further any faster apart. And so it really looked like if we could bring it together, we could offshore the pieces that didn't work for each of us and lean into what did. I can see this amazing firm that we'll be able to get up and running and moving forward faster than we were able to do separately.
Yeah. So this new firm is launching in March 2025, which is just right around the corner.
Yes.
And I imagine that you and your partner have some pretty audacious goals, like some really big pie in the sky goals that are probably both exciting and daunting right now. Can you share a little bit about what those goals look like in this new season?
Yeah, we're going to hire, which is crazy. We're hoping to hire a tax person here by the end of the year. We're hiring another bookkeeper accountant by the end of the year, project manager. So those pieces, just the hiring piece, which I'd been as a solopreneur pretty resistant on because training a person almost takes more work than doing it yourself. So we're gonna go into that. Again, something that she's much more skilled on, that training piece. I'd say I really enjoy the client education, but the employee training, it's a little bit harder for me, especially on the bookkeeping side that I'm not interested in. Tax-wise, I'm excited. So that piece. And then, revenue-wise, we're hoping to get to $1 million+ firm, which will be just incredible. But it's really building a military spouse friendly place. She's a spouse, and then her employee is a military spouse as well. My employee came from the fire department side of life. So we were all used to kind of these spouses having jobs that we have no control over and we don't get to say anything. And so it's just this place that people can land, develop their careers, do meaningful work, and not do it at the 60, 80, 90-hour weeks that public accounting makes you do.
Yeah, I feel that. And I think that's a unique part of our businesses and our experience as business owners is that whether you're a military spouse or a first responder spouse, there are a lot of constraints that are dictated by someone other than you and your spouse. And that's really difficult to navigate. And I think it would be really great to hear you and your husband have just transitioned out of active duty military service. He's in the Guard right now, or the Reserve?
Yes.
The Guard. Can you talk about maybe some of the financial planning or business planning or family planning discussions that you guys have had in this season that might be helpful for anyone who's listening, who's navigating a transition, no matter what that looks like, whether it's military or otherwise?
So 2021, we were on the VML, so we had to move that summer. And so the discussion had to happen. Are we staying in? Are we getting out? If we're getting out, what are we doing? We had 4 kids and then ended up with another on the way. So health insurance was a big piece. So that discussion started. So the planning was we needed to get my business to a place where if he transitioned and took a pay cut, whichever direction that was it going to be airlines? Was it going to be Guard, traditional Guard, active duty Guard? Truly didn't know. So we had to get the business up to a place that it could fund our life while he took a pay cut. Because if you are a pilot wife at all, the airline first year pay is worse than your 10 years of service pay. And when you have a bunch of kids, that's rough. I had planned to get the business up to that place, which it thankfully was doing. We thought we were going to step into an active duty Guard spot. So we thought it was going to be okay, but I was shoring up the business because I'm a control freak who...
Best laid plans.
It felt like a smart plan. And they said no to the active duty Guard, gave it to somebody else, but they said, we've got a traditional Guard job for you. And so we leaped more than I've ever leapt in my life. And we said, fine, we will take that with no plans. Because traditional Guard, for those who may not know, is 1 weekend a month, 2 weeks a year. So there's not a guarantee that he's employed every day of the year getting a paycheck. And we went back and forth with what our dream life looked like. And it did not fit with the airline life. So we were really closing a very lucrative door and saying, that's just not the path we're going to take. We're going to trust this one. And that one came with a traditional Guard job. He eventually was able to get a federal job. And so we had a mess there, but again, lower pay, insurance nightmares. And we kind of sat and waited, and we said, we'll give this a year. This wasn't quite working for us. We'll give it a year. Business was still holding on and doing well, but I was getting stressed out and tired because I was pregnant with our 5th and I couldn't maintain that pace. And so we got to the end of the year and our best friend called and he said, you got to make a call now. The contractors are hiring. Does he want the job? He's going to have to close the door on active duty Guard. If he's doing this, you can't come take this job and then swap back. You're committing. And we sat, and we thought, and we prayed. That's it. That's clearly why everything else hadn't worked. And so he walked into the contractor job. They hired him pretty quickly and transitioned him just after we had our 5th child. And it was a beautiful job. It still is a beautiful job because he only flies and he only teaches, which are the 2 things that just light him up the most. When he has desk work to do, which he does, he's allowed to do that from home and he's allowed to pick up the kids. Like, the flexibility has been amazing. And so we've started to really create that life where we're both working in a capacity that fulfills us both, but allows us to be the parents we want to be, which was very long.
But you ended it with the literal most important part is that we are living in what works best for us as individuals, are thriving or like striving perhaps in our roles. But we're in a position to where we can do both and still be joyful about it. We can still have this like level of presence and to create the life and the lifestyle for our families. And I think what is so unique about the conversation we're having is that no matter what your version of this looks like, if you're aspiring towards that, then that is success. You are able to be the parent that you want to be within how much you want to be involved or how much you want to pour into your business, but having the flexibility, the agency, and the authority to do that while you're collectively deciding what that looks like, that is success. And so I am excited for you, and it's hard fought, I will imagine.
It was hard fought, and it still is to this day, but we wouldn't have it any other way. And so many oftentimes when these happen and they find out I have 5 kids and I have a business, and it's the how do you? And it's because my partner, the one we're going through life together, we align on what we want to do and where we want to go. He had to make calls. He had to make calls of, I'm taking a plane that deploys less. I'm not going to be a fighter pilot. I'm not going to pursue some of these opportunities. I'm not going to pursue command because my wife would probably lose it. And that's not to say that I'm discouraging his development, but it is that it had to be a joint figure. And so often in the military spouse world, it really seems like the service member is driving everything and never compromising and never saying, your career matters too, your fulfillment matters too. What can I do to allow for that? And so that has been huge. If he was of a one set mind that we were going to rise the ranks and go to DC, we wouldn't have 5 kids and we wouldn't have what we do today. So all of that was so jointly done with sacrifices in the beginning for the deployments. But as he got agency over his career, the ability to really drive that.
It brings me such peace because, again, it is this hard fought, hard discussion, puzzle, like master jigsaw puzzle of trying to align the stars when the stars are not in your control, but also making hard decisions that have not consequences, but they have outcomes that may be less than ideal.
Yes.
So I'm excited for you. And I know that, again, that was probably not the easiest chapter. And one thing that I think is really important to differentiate is that, there are people in military service who are separating and transitioning with different futures. When you transition or separate in retirement, you're obviously separating with a pension or a retirement fund or something. But when you separate ahead of that, it is a completely different lifestyle discussion about healthcare, about revenue and income, about location and geography, and like how we're going to make this work when it is a chicken and the egg scenario. And it's what I have to imagine is a much more like serious conversation about financially, how are we going to make this work with 5 children, with mortgages? Do we go back and live near family? And again, that whole master puzzle piece of like, okay, how do we really do this?
Yes, it is. Especially because young us decided that we'd be in the Air Force forever. And then it became you're going traditional guard and you'll do your time there because we need that. Like that was part of our future planning was this pension from the military and kind of needed it one way or the other. So we had to take the other path to get there. But young 23-year-old us definitely didn't see this coming.
How things change. Yeah, I'm with you. Caitlin, I would love to go back to some of the conversations we're having about what you're seeing in the kind of the online business world with some of the clients that you work with, because as we have highlighted in previous discussions, the online business economy and like what works now is not what worked 5 years ago. So there are a lot of pivots and lessons learned, and the people who remain or who are starting businesses, they either know their business structure when it comes to bookkeeping or CPA and how to lean on a tax advisor, or they're figuring that out. So I'm curious, when it comes to the clients that you're serving right now, these 6- and 7-figure female business owners, what challenges do they face right now that you're helping them solve?
Yeah, we're seeing a real shift in money being spent and what that looks like and how it looks, which if you started businesses in 2020, you're reaching that 5-year mark. And that's when a lot of small businesses do close. Like if you pull up the percentages, that's that time marker. And whether it's a lack of cash flow, it's a lack of revenue, something around that 5-year mark, you burn out. Burnout's probably a big one. Business owners start shifting. So what we're seeing is a lot of that like one-on-one, very high-priced services are not faring as well as they used to. Suddenly people are like, oh, I'll get less attention for more affordability. So they're preferring things like a group program where they can get some of that touch, but it fits the budget a little bit better. Because if you're selling business to business, the other business owners are trying to up their profit margin so that they can take more home. So you're trying to play into all of that. A big one is I'm seeing business owners burn out. The ones who started and were going hard and the one-on-one services and had the full calendars are suddenly like, whoa, I'm tired. I can't do this anymore. And so those discussions around how can we offer this in a way that affects you less? Is it hiring? Is it group programs? Whatever the case may be. And then tax-wise, we're starting to see some of the damages maybe that were done 2020 early years, bad preparers, bad decisions, TikTok advice. Well, that's starting to come due. And suddenly, if your return's getting picked up for audit, they're like, oh, wait, I couldn't do that. We need to fix that. And so, unfortunately, some are starting to see you were better off taking the correct position the first time than having to back pay those taxes and all of the issues. So thankfully, they weren't my clients who were with me for 5-6 years, but I am starting to see like inquisitions and like, hey, are you taking people? This is what's going on. And I'm just, my eyes are kind of bugging out that that's what we've got going on right now.
Whenever people come to you, and maybe this is a new client of yours or people who are inquiring about your services, do they know what they're asking for? Do they know exactly what they need? Or they're just like, hey, I know this is important and I need someone to step in and tell me what I need to do and to like be my adult in my tax preparation and in my bookkeeping.
It is the adult piece. It is. And because we'll ask questions, I'll get on a call like this and I'll ask people like all these questions. And a lot of the times I start to see like that, I don't know if I'm giving the right answer. And so it is why so often I just simply, can I see the books? Can I see the returns? Because it is a different language. If it's a letter from the IRS, I don't know how quickly like client or friend or family will message me and be like, I don't know what this says. And I was like, well, did you read past the part that it said IRS? And if you're a paying client, like I'm happy to read past the part. The family and friends, I'm like, come on, guys. Like you have to read below the IRS part. I promise they told you something. But they're like, no, it's at IRS. We're panicking. And so a lot of my job is to be that adult, that emotional regulator of like, it's just a letter from a person, or a robot. Let's go through it together. So I do get to play a lot of that, but the letters are the fun ones that it's like, okay, we'll get through it. But sometimes I swear with family, it was like wanted some follow-up information. I was like, you could have solved this on your own. I swear to you, you could have. You gave me the skills in life to solve it on my own. You may do it.
A couple of things that bring up some like maybe mindset issues, or they bring up some like personal feelings when it comes to business. It is when you show someone your numbers and your P&L, your revenue, how profitable you are. And it's like someone coming to your house and looking at the closet where you just cram everything in. And it's like, oh my gosh, this is real. This is what my situation is. And it's like, for me, it feels so vulnerable to show someone my income and my numbers. So do you have to work through that like personal anguish of taxes and income and P&L?
Yes. I think that a part that helps me is I like people. And so I really try to lead with that foot, that is purely what we're here for. It's a no judgment zone. But when I had to release it to my partner, I mean, she was probably the first one that I had to dig in and be like, this is everything. Please still want to partner with me? Like, don't think I'm a bad accountant here, because it shows what you are, because where we spend our money is what we value. So am I spending too much? Did I not charge my clients enough? Like all of those insecurities come up. And so having walked through it myself, I guess the practice I had with clients of easing them into it helped a bit, but that insecurity, I think, always stays there. But there's no judgment, and we can't fix the problem if we don't see the problem. It's like not going to the doctor because you're ashamed. Like we have to start somewhere. And so that profit and loss, and if you want to make those changes, the beauty is those of us who are trained, we're trained for trends, and we're trained for looking at other stuff to help you piece it together and make improvements. So yeah, you kind of have to open up the drywall to get there, but it's
Begrudgingly.
worth it. I know.
Yeah.
It's so worth it.
I realize that there are probably a very wide variety of business owners who are going to listen to this, and they're probably sitting, in their car or at their desk and thinking, do I need a bookkeeper? Do I need do I 100% need someone to file my taxes for me? So can you talk about maybe the levels of business of maybe it's revenue or team size or like how your company is structured? Like what warrants either a bookkeeper or someone to file your taxes for you, and how should people make that decision moving forward?
So some of it's self-discovery. So some of it's business side, of course. Some of it is the business owner themselves. So if I have a business owner who I could not pay to do their bookkeeping, like there is no dollar amount that would get them to open up that software or that Excel file, they have to, because there's a compliance piece to this, right? The government says we have to file tax returns, and those tax returns have to be built off of a profit and loss bookkeeping system. So it has to get done. So you can either continue to keep your head in the sand and be in a stressful situation January through March, April of every year of your life, or you can say, I am not the person who will ever touch this file. I might as well just hire a bookkeeper. And the bookkeeper at that point, if you're a small business, we haven't grown much, we're under $100,000, we just need them to classify your transactions in a way that an accountant will understand. You can do that. And again, if I could never pay you to open up TurboTax and understand the questions you're being asked, then just hire the tax preparer. It will be worth it. It will be worth going and finding the extra client to pay for that, because your life will feel better. So if that's who you are, just as an inherent person, then it doesn't matter the size of your business. You need those professionals. If, however, you have some type A tendencies and you're like, this is kind of fun, I like it, then those people exist. And some of them became accountants and some of them were like, no, I'll just do the accounting for my business. If it's just you, you're a Schedule C, then I'd say, again, $100,000 to $150,000, you're probably fine doing it yourself, especially if you are selling a few things of high revenue. We don't have a whole lot going on. But when we start talking, hey, I want to be an S Corp, I've got a lot of transactions, I want to hire employees, I want to set up benefits, it's time to bring in some professionals for the guidance piece. Even if you still want to operationally do it yourself, set up those consultations, have someone walk you through it. But having someone file your taxes, the code is big. I don't like when people start and sell with that. There's a lot in the code. The benefit of a professional is we just see all of the common stuff. So it's really quick for us. It takes a lot less effort for us to be like, you can do that, you can't do that. Because we've done it for 15 years.
I think that is the peace of mind piece of being able to, maybe you're not in a place where you need to hire someone to do your filings or your bookkeeping, but you need an expert to guide you, if for 30, 60, 90 minutes, or like a couple of times in a month, just as you get started, or like you have this big seasonal thing going on, or a transaction, or, you know, something worth maybe not hiring full time, but also like really making sure that you receive the proper guidance. And that is where I think those consultations come into play much stronger.
They do. And with tax especially, it has to happen before. So once you do that transaction, we can't go undo it and make it tax favorable. So if you are in some big thing, a real estate investor, a real estate person who, rental houses are big in the military community. So if you have a rental house and we're moving and we want to buy a new rental house, so we're selling one and buying another, well, there's an exchange that can happen that can make that tax free, but you have to put all steps in place before you do it. And so having that peace of mind, and that's where just having that continual professional can help, is that you talk to them a few times a year. But if you want to do it yourself, at least finding someone before you do some of that is helpful.
Yeah. As we talked about previously, influencing or doing anything right now for your 2024 filings is not, we're not there. We're past that. So now we're talking about
2025.
What are we doing for 2025? And I think you brought up a great point that I would love for you to bring clarity to, is in the ways that you work with your clients presently. Again, I'm sure it is based on how their business is set up, but is it solely their business that you're helping them with, or is there a level of personal finances and that personal consideration for rental properties, mortgage, interest, and all of those other things? Is that also included in this discussion?
Is, and so many entities are what we call pass-through. So like the entity itself pay tax. And so if I truly want to help you with your tax pieces, I have to get into the individual side. And so that is where most of the complications happen, because that's where you can have your rental properties, or you're moving states, or your, oh my goodness, residency for spouses. Like we're a resident of one state, but we're living in another state, but our business is in a third state. And then the military is up and moving me again. Like that all just needs to be discussed and worked through.
Are you trying to trigger me? I'm getting triggered.
You live in Florida now. You should all be Florida residents, forming businesses in Florida and never move. That's my
Yep.
recommendation.
The hours of sleep I lost, the number of phone calls I've had, the remedies I've had to go through, and like it's still not perfect is exhausting. So
It is.
that's another level of like messy closet that you've brought into of like, okay, here's my messy closet in business, but also like here,
My
welcome to my
personal.
house and my marriage.
Yeah.
Like this is our personal financial picture. That's a whole nother level of not invasion, but certainly vulnerability.
It is. Military members are less so because it's publicly available knowledge. So they
Mhm.
tend to be like, whatever. But when you start adding in like the personal investments or the rental houses, that's when people are like, but do you really have to see that? And
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
think there's just this sense that everyone's out there to judge us. And I'm just curious. And I think that's what it comes down to. Like, I just am nosy and curious, and not in a way of like, I want to judge you for it. Like, I just want to know, like, what cool things are you doing that maybe I haven't thought about? Or what is this cool thing that I could maybe help you with? I just like to gather the data.
We like to have the big picture.
Yeah.
Yeah. In that same kind of mentality, whenever we look at 2025 and either trends or like critical considerations that our peers need to know, can you think of a couple of things that looking into 2025 or just from a best practices standpoint, people should really be thinking about now in their either their tax strategy or their financial planning or bookkeeping, just being a sound financially focused business owner? Any best practices that stand out to you?
Yeah, if we don't have a person on our side on the financial side, like let's get someone. But if you want a tax person and you don't have one now, unfortunately, is not the best time to find one. So it's end of
True.
February. What you're really looking, because I hate to say that, but most of the time, if someone has like a lot of availability in March and April, they're new, which is great. Give them a shot. Or they're like a churn and burn, and that's not necessarily where you want. So if you're really wanting that relationship, wait until after April, reach out, have your interviews this summer. So if we're looking for bookkeeping people, tax people, financials, it's really, if you can wait till after April 15th, I highly encourage it because that's where you're going to be able to interview them, have some more time. Tax strategy wise, this is a good year to have a lot of patience and have someone on your side who knows what's going on and is watching it and is ready to like guide you. But keep in mind, a lot of the activity is probably going to happen later in this year because we're waiting for tax law to pass. It all expires at the end of the year. So you can do what you want in 2025. We can guide you and tell you, hey, this is what's going on. But what we can't tell you is it better to do it this year or next? We don't have that answer yet. And so what will likely happen is it's going to be a very busy Q4. If you've got big tax strategies you're trying to put in place, you're probably going to be waiting until we can get some sight onto what 2026 and beyond looks like, because there's some wild stuff being proposed. So I don't know.
Yeah, I think there's probably a level of uncertainty and apprehension about anything related to what might be forthcoming with the new administration or just kind of changes in the in I guess it's a law, like tax law. I mean, there are a lot of uncertainties that come into play that it's even more beneficial to have someone who is like has a finger on the pulse of exactly what is happening. And I think that's why there's so many things why I love about following you and leaning on you for that maybe like social media guidance is because you are so like invested in knowing and absorbing what's happening in real time and being able to like clearly articulate that for your clients and even for people who are not your clients, people who are like probably just stressed out about the big hairy scary thing that is taxes and revenue and bookkeeping.
And it shouldn't be like, that's a whole other discussion. But yeah, to me it's interesting, but it's also something I can at least try to boil down for others. But yeah, if you haven't and if you're curious, it's going to be an interesting year. I'm going to try to talk about it as much as I can when they propose things, because for anyone who knows how, I guess, the sausage gets made, there's a lot of wheeling and dealing before we ever see a bill. And so when we hear those whisperings, that's when we need to be paying attention.
Totally. So, Caitlin, let's shift a little bit more into the personal side of things, of maybe the literal questions of how the heck do you have a successful business and get your MBA and have 5 children in the midst of all of the things. But maybe just to make this shift, I would love, generally speaking, you've been in business since 2018. Can you kind of talk about the peaks and valleys in your business that might have been defining moments for you? And no, it doesn't have to necessarily be about business. It could be about family growth or planning and other things that have happened on the personal side.
So what often happens is I get pushed into making decisions. For me, I believe in God, and so I believe it's him basically being like, you ignored every like hint I gave you, I will force this change. This is the trajectory you can look at for the majority of my business life, is just this forced change. Like, you're not in the right spot. You won't listen. So here we go. Honestly, the only reason I started a business was because we had twins. And we had twins. My husband was deploying and my job wasn't flexible and it wouldn't let me work from home. And at that point, that made 3 kids total. And if any parent and mom has put their kids in daycare, they understand that one will get sick one day, the next will get sick the next, and then the third, and they're all out for 24 to 48 hours. And now my work week is gone because my husband's deployed, everyone is sick, and no one can go to daycare, and my work won't let me work from home. So that is really the only reason I started a business, was because I was like, I could not show up fully as a great employee and a great mom, and great mom had to win at that point. And so that was a first big thing. And then it started small. It was just going to keep up my skills. I was just going to do this to keep up my skills. Nothing more. And then it became, well, I could do more because the kids are sleeping better. And we're moving to Mississippi and not England. So I'm going to have some time on my hands. And I could do it online. Like, no one's really doing it fully online. I could do it online, and I could work with other people who understand what it means to work fully online. And so that started to really peak, and I was like, this is awesome. We're going to build this great business. And I started 2020 hit, and I was just growing faster than I could have ever imagined, which felt amazing. And then my husband came home and was like, by the way, I've got a 6-month stateside deployment and I'm being tapped for it, and I'm going to leave during tax season. And I went, that's cool. We have a 4th baby now and 3 kids and no solid daycare because daycare never recovered from the pandemic. Cool. And so I talked to some business coaches and they were like, well, just outsource all the family stuff and then continue to build the business and work. And I was like, oh, that feels icky. Like, that feels really, really icky. And so I pulled back.
Which is a personal decision.
It's a personal decision.
So important to highlight that no matter what your decision is, whatever is authentic to you is what's right for you and your family. And for you, it was, I don't want to outsource being a mom, or being a mom in the way that you want to be present for your children.
Exactly. And so I had to redefine success. I had to pull back from social media that told me success was X figures in my business. And I had to say, no, right now, success is maintaining my sanity, getting some sleep, and still running the business. And so I had to email a ton of people in January and say, I can't do your returns this year. And that hurt my ego. It hurt what I perceived was my reputation. How dare I in January send these poor people out to find new tax preparers when people are probably full? Like, oh, it was not good. And at that point, I was like, what's the point? Why am I doing this? If I can't do it how I want to do it, which is full ham because the military once again messed it up for me, do I want to do it at all? And so it was a good time to look at what I was building, which was a tax practice, which was not going to be sustainable, and to refocus on what I wanted to build, which was a more consistent year-long relationship with clients. And so I got to pivot into that. And so we continued with that. If this is a kind of like growth, and then I would burn out, and then I'd have to refocus and rediscover what I wanted to do. Clients started to feel routine, not in a bad way, and we were lazy, just that after a while, sometimes things settle. And so I went and I was like, I want something else. I want to be able to teach. So I pursued my MBA, and I'm doing that now. And that still wasn't quite enough. At the end of last year, I kind of reached that point again of like, this isn't working. Something's wrong. I don't know what's wrong. And it was that I was doing it alone. And I was just tired. I was tired of carrying that weight of doing it alone. I wanted someone else in it with me, and not in an employee situation, but like in a, we're both picking up these shovels. We're both going to make this happen, but we're going to do it in a way that we get to do what we love. So it's been a lot of up and downs, and a lot of like those blinders, like having to put those blinders on and say, my success looks like X, Y, and Z. And it cannot look like someone else's, because nobody else has 5 kids, a husband in the Guard, a husband who's doing contract work, family who isn't nearby. Like, this is uniquely me. My business has to be uniquely me. Well, uniquely us now, because we're just, that's it. Like, this is the hand we've been dealt, and this is what we get to build. I am not a single white man in college who gets the privilege of building $1 billion business because I have no responsibilities. Like, that's just not where we're at. And so that's important.
Very few things grind my gears, but I hope that whenever moms are scrolling on social media and they come across that person who says, go ghost mode for 6 months and you'll be a completely different person, that does not apply to us. We're not going ghost mode on anything because we have a family and a business to run. And frankly, we have to be so many things to so many people that going ghost mode on anybody is not good. And especially not good for people like you and me, where our energy determines our quality and how we show up for both our family and in our business. No one should be going ghost mode unless you are a single, very aspirational individual who can go ghost mode on these things. We have to wake up and make sure, you know what, let's not even talk about waking up. We have to make sure that the children who we put into their beds stay in their beds. And if they don't, like last night, my little guy crawled into bed with me, took him back to his bed. Then he crawled back into bed, and then little sis or big sis came in, pulled me into her bed. And then he woke up and pulled me out of her bed into my bed to sleep with him. So like,
sleep deprived. Like there's just not enough.
Yeah, if I'm going ghost mode, it's going to be to my bed.
Oh my gosh, I don't think I've seen that advice, but I couldn't.
Our algorithm might be a little different. Yeah.
But that's the thing. Like I've even had to shift my algorithm. I've had to pull it. And that's why like there's so many hobbies listed, because that's what I want to be fed right now are these people who are doing hobbies, because otherwise I go in and I say, well, why am I sucking so bad at this? Why can't I have a $2 million business and be working 80 hours a week? Like why? And so by just shutting it off, I'm able to be like, knitting, that looks fun.
Yeah. I saw something on social media a while back that said, I don't want AI to take away my creativity and like my business outlets. I want AI to do my dishes and my laundry and like take away the mundane so I can thrive in areas that are important to me.
Where kids are watching Jetsons, like we've found like the old TV shows and we're letting them watch them. So the Jetsons is one. And I was like, where's Rosie? Why? Like, she should be here by now, shouldn't she?
We need her. Yeah. We need a Rosie. We need like 4 Rosies. Caitlin, what I've learned as a mom is that I don't hold boundaries as well as other people do. So I'm very curious to know what boundaries you may have in your life or in your business where you can be a mom of 5 and you can dictate the hours in which you work. So can you talk about the boundaries, whether it's like your me time or when you have sitters, childcare, things like that?
One of my hard and fast things, probably developed from postpartum anxiety, was I didn't want full-time childcare. And so whatever I did had to fit within part-time childcare. And at that, I really needed the childcare to not happen until the kids could communicate better. So there were a lot of things, very likely anxiety-driven, that built that. So we have childcare 3 mornings a week now because it's tax season. The kids who aren't school-aged are in part-time school or with a sitter. And then I work through their quiet time or nap time, which has been a hard lesson for my kids as they got older. They're like, that's not done. Just because you're 10, almost 10, does not mean that you don't have to like disappear for an hour and a half to 2 hours. My hope is it's also teaching them to learn to rest. So we have a lot of those. We were very structured in our schedule. Like the kids know when they're waking up, they know when they're eating, they know when quiet time is, they know when we're winding down and we're going to bed. And that has helped me just continue to function. I recently had heard this phrase, like, unfortunately, that's just not possible. And like, that's where you end it. So I'm trying to put that into my world too. No excuses, no reasons. It's just not possible. And then for me time, hobby time, I did succumb to like what we would call, I guess, more feminine hobbies of things that can be done around the house, but things that I can do either with the kids or tell them to like go play. And I'm going to do this myself. And I'm okay with that. Like I would like to get back to golfing. I think that's the biggest one, but there's been other reasons I haven't been able to. But it's been nice to show, hopefully model for my kids what I hope for them. And that's that they get to still be a person while they parent. And my husband has his own hobbies. He builds models and he has other things he likes to do. And so I hope that what they'll see is that like we can have this family and we can have these jobs we love and we can still be a human and we can still sleep. I think at the end of the day, what I'm trying to do is paint the picture that when I'm 80, I can look back and say, oh, that was a good time. I don't want to remember being stressed and freaked out and running all over. I want to remember that I was able to pause and listen to a ridiculous story for my children and that I made a cool blanket that they absolutely loved and that we ate bread that I made. Like that's what I guess I want to carry into my 80s, that I helped business owners in a way that was impactful, but I didn't do it at the expense of everything else.
Yeah. This is kind of a morbid piece of advice that I've received historically, but someone said, if you think about writing your eulogy, what does that look like? If you were able to write your eulogy, when you depart the earth at 80, 90, 100 years old, what does that eulogy say? And that eulogy, what you want it to say, should influence how you spend your time and the person that you want to be now. And that is being the parent you want to be. It is leading your business in a way that is not depleting or unsustainable and makes the impact that we want it to make. So it's not the most fun advice to hear, but if you think about writing your eulogy, what does that say, and how can you make those small shifts now?
I wrote mine a couple of years ago. It was obituary for me was the advice I'd received. So I wrote my obituary a few years ago.
Yeah.
And granted, I can never finish something I start writing. My brain goes off. But it was the active practice that at least had me thinking through all those pieces. But whenever a big fork in the road comes up, I really try to pull back and look and put like 85-year-old me in and say, okay, well, what's 85-year-old me going to be proud of in this point in time? And what's she going to remember? And that has helped greatly make those tough calls.
Speaking of tough calls, you and I both have had the benefit of working with or working alongside of Melissa, who is a human design business strategist coach. And she taught me so much about myself that I didn't realize was really important for me to consider. She's actually going to be on the podcast in a couple of weeks as well. So what I discovered through working with Melissa is that I'm a projector and you are a projector.
Yes.
And it sounds like your business partner is a projector as well. Can you talk about the impact in like understanding your human design and how that translates to you leading your business and the decisions that you're making in support of those businesses?
And it's huge. So a lot of it is self-discovery too. Like when you learn it, all of a sudden you're like, oh my gosh, that makes so much sense. All of these things make so much sense. So I entered into that world in 2021 maybe. So I've been 4 or 5 years now of that self-discovery. So one, I highly recommend you analyze yourself and your kids. Toss your kids into it so you know who you're trying to like raise. But what has really helped is one, seeing all the good that has come from, as a projector, invitations. So when those invitations happen, so with my business partner, I'd actually reached out to another human design person I know. And I said, okay, how does this work? She's a projector. I'm a projector. Who's inviting who? She goes, have you both made the invite? I said, yes. She goes, then you're good to go. So learning those pieces has been huge. So those invites have been impactful. Knowing that my employee is a generator and her employee is a generator is huge because we're like, oh, they want diverse work and they want to be guided and they're going to respect us. So we're able to build that piece in. I am tribal, so you can go very far down. I'm tribal, which makes sense why it felt so lonely to be doing this alone. I needed that partner. I need to be connected to my kids community and my local community, have a big family, because that's what fulfills me, is serving all of these people. So the more I learned about myself, the more I'm able to kind of build that business to work. And what it is that both of us should be guiding. We shouldn't necessarily be doing the bookkeeping or the tax return preparation. We should be getting to dive into what parts of business and accounting interest us and then passing that knowledge on to our clients and guiding them in doing it. So the fact we're aiming for that, aiming for courses and education opportunities, because that's where we're going to shine. But realizing that there was zero way that I was ever going to get anywhere by burning myself out, by working a ton, was just freeing to be like, that's just not me. The people who have 5 businesses are probably a Manny-gen. Great for them. That will never be me.
One of the questions I was going to ask you is, have you figured out how to hack your invitations yet? Because that's one of the things that I'm trying to dive into deeper. But the way that I look at an opportunity, or the way that I look at the energy that's going to be required into something, I always question whether I have the capacity for it, whether it's in alignment. I think the alignment of decisions in business and in my family been a result of working with Melissa and really being thoughtful about who I say yes to and where I'm spending my time, because I genuinely do enjoy doing a lot of things and having a really diverse array of like activities or maybe not even hobbies. Like, honestly, my hobby is working. My hobby is serving my community. Maybe it's working out, but like, I'm trying to reflect that back into, instead of what I should be doing, what do I want to do? What is so in alignment with who I truly am to my core? And so it's still very much a reflection on that, but I'm curious from the invitation perspective, how are you like bringing those in? How are you calling them in? Do you have any tips?
I don't, because I'm still learning, because there's still the scarcity mindset I always fight. Like, oh gosh, it's been really quiet. No one's reaching out to me. And when I find that when I sit back, and what'll usually happen is I'll freak out that there's not been leads for whatever. I'll show up on social media, first forced, which never gets me anywhere. And then the next one will be a lot more authentic of like, oh, I just want to share this piece. And then I will find something that will grab my attention, whether it's like a new hobby I want to learn, whether it's some type of topic I want to dive deep into, my classes, whatever the case may be. And I'll dive into that. And suddenly, all of a sudden, there's like things falling into my lap. And they're like, hey, here are the ththings that, because you learned that, you get to go apply to these clients. And so it's the weirdest way of like, it's not, I couldn't put an equation to it, but the more that I do trust the process and trust it, do small things to make myself visible, connect with people, which is what I'm probably the strongest at, is just true, authentic relationships with people. And it usually pays off in delivering stuff well. Your business, my business, referrals are probably the majority of it. And so it's just showing up and delivering the heck out of what I do. And then truly meeting people because I want to meet them, because there's just so many fascinating things to learn about people in the world. And all of that seems to come full circle. And then you just assess those invites. For me, I have to sit on it for a couple of days because I've got the emotional part of it. So the little roller coaster of like, oh, this feels really amazing. And ooh, that feels really bad. It's going to be too much work. And I have to find that happy medium of like, okay, now that there's no highs and lows, how does it feel?
I resonate with that so much. And I think it has reinforced being able to listen to my gut when something feels off. Like if it's a client that has come to you who wants to work with you, but you have this little feeling that's like there's some, and what you and I do is like there's so much integrity embedded into what we do. We need to lead with integrity. I need to believe in the clients that I choose to work with because I am ultimately choosing to be their megaphone and their conduit. And if I don't believe in their mission or believe that we share the same values regarding like truth and honesty and how we present ourselves, it quickly is affirmed that either I made the wrong decision by working with them, or it quickly affirms that I should not pursue moving forward with that contract.
Yes.
Which is a difficult lesson to learn.
So now you're saying no to business, right? And you're like,
yeah.
But what if? But I don't know about you. Offboarding clients is so painful too. And so it's almost like, okay, I'll save myself future. But we just had a lead pop in, and it was on my business partner side. And the email was written in a way that like I read it and I immediately was like, this is awful. Like, this is not good. Even though it was a referral, even though they were singing the praises of my partner. So all of the projector things were being met. Like it should have been. I was like, they're going to ask too much of us. She got on a call and she's like, no, they're great. But I'm still torn. I was like, well, maybe because I was in a point. I was tired. I was stressed. There was a lot going on. Was not the place to make the decision. Came back to it and we're like, no, this actually would fit. It would further support our goals. They are quality, integral people. And so just recognizing that piece too. There are times where your gut's going to be like, oh no, that's bad. But if you step back and look and you're like, okay, is it truly bad? And if so, let's go with that. But maybe I hadn't had coffee yet and the kids were up 10 times last night. And that's not going to be the situation 6 months from now. And it's actually not work that we specifically have to do. It's what our employees can do. So do they have the capacity? So it's thinking through all those things and not, checking email at 5 a.m. in bed is probably a good plan. But hey, we all got our vices.
We do. And it is a continual learning curve and something that I am still like grappling with. But it certainly has allowed me to better understand myself, especially in reflection of times where I felt so misunderstood or like so in environments where I didn't fit in. And it was because of the way that I work and how I absorb information and structure information. And it plays a role in every aspect of my life that I now have better clarity for.
I love it. I think that's what I love about all this self-discovery piece is you can have the gurus out there writing the books, but if you don't know who you are, then you're going to get stuck on the wrong path, I think. And so I listen to a lot less of like the self-help and just a lot more of like, how can we ask ourselves questions and develop better? And I mostly learn about myself through my interactions with others. So constantly surrounding myself with wonderful people like yourself and Melissa and just letting them teach me is just great.
One of the things that we've talked about before, and it kind of goes back to that like boundary piece and like how you structure your day. Can you talk about like morning habits or routines that really play a role in like keeping your sanity and preparing you to start your day and your week off right?
Yeah, I historically have been a morning person. And so I like to be up in the morning. I like when it's quiet. My husband and I made a pact that we would start working out at 5 a.m. together. And so my body thought that means we need to wake up at like 3:30. I don't know why. Because the alarm is set for 4. So it's really like a 4:30 workout because you get moving. And so lately my body's like, no. We're going to wake up at 3:30. But ideally, we're up at 4. Our gym is in our house, which is nice because we have 5 kids and we can't go anywhere. So we just head on down. And I do prefer mornings where I work out now that classes have started back out. it's a swap between whether I go and I like lift and do that kind of workout, or I have a walking pad at my desk. And so I will hop on that and do my classwork, which is still getting like the movement. I toss on the happy lights. I've put a few of those within our house so that in the mornings, everything feels better because we're in Nebraska and it's cold and dark. And then kind of getting ready for the day. For me to be a good mom, I'm usually ready before my kids are up. Otherwise, they're interrupting me. And again, I get cranky. I want a couple hours of like not needing me. But then we've got kids to run off to school. And depending on my husband's schedule, depends on how early I can get to work. I try not to work more than 5 or 6 hours a day. Basically, what I found when I worked corporate and any other job is usually by like hour 4, I'm just goofing off at my computer. So I can get a lot done in a short period of time. But if it's like I have to fill the time, I will. And I will sit here and do nothingness until that point. So leaning into that projector energy, there are many days where it's been a dedicated work day. I can't get moving and I can't get anything done, and I will just walk away and I will be like, there's something in the house that needs done. There's something else I can do, because if I come back tomorrow, I'll get all of this done in an hour. But for some reason, it's not driving today. So respecting all of that, I try to get a nap, which is going to sound crazy, but like to make it to the end of the day with the kids, nice person, usually a nap is needed.
How do you finagle that? How do you make a nap happen?
Well, we still require like quiet time. It's not always. And I'm a power napper now that like the kids are sleeping through the night. I can do like a 10-minute nap and I'm like, oh, I'm a whole new person.
You know, my husband and my father-in-law do the signature lazy boy 15-minute nap whenever it's possible. It is 15 minutes. They make it happen and they wake up rejuvenated and revitalized. And I'm just like, I would have to have a 3-hour REM cycle
To get there.
to have a nap. Yeah.
Yep. I don't know. It must be the 5 kids thing. I used to be a long napper. Like I will get mad on weekends when like I've got the permission. Josh is handling everything. I can go take a long nap and my body's like 10 minutes, we're done. I was like, but I could do an hour. Can we just take the hour nap?
Yeah.
And then we do the after school stuff, which is by then I really try to be off the work stuff and I try to be clued in to the kids, because multitasking is the first thing that will make me ragey, is like trying to help them while trying to help a client. And I'm not going to yell at the client. And so my kids get the bad mom. And so I just really try to be like, it can wait for tomorrow, because there are no accounting emergencies. Like I'm constantly having to remind myself that. And it looks like you are the same.
It is my worst nightmare to be the raging mom. I do not want to be the mom that is short and snippy and responding in a way that is not aligned with their action because I'm stressed out about work. Whenever I am doing work for clients, it's typically like well thought out, curated pitches to journalists where you have a literal split second to make an impression on them. And I cannot do that without clarity of thought and focus. And so I cannot work when my kids are not in care. And sometimes that's been a sitter in the house. Now they're both in school, and it is so much better for my like mental health and the quality of my work because I have that focus. And it's not better for me that they're in school, but it's better for me to work when they are outside of the house. And so I feel that so deeply and appreciate knowing that that is the case for other people.
So we do that. We have early bedtimes in my house, which might just shock a lot of people.
Fine early.
Like we're putting them in bed at 6:30 and we're like trying to walk out of their rooms by 6:45, 7 o'clock. I'm like, we're starting their
Do they
routines.
wake up?
The baby woke up at 5 today, but most of the time 6. So we get 6 a.m., which is when I'm fine releasing them. Weekends they'll sleep in, but that allows me to be a person and a spouse and stuff after they go to bed and still have some energy. They don't sleep by any means. Like the older ones will sit in their rooms and read. We have little storytellers, like all the things. But so we manage all of that and try to just enjoy the evening as a couple, whether that's hobbies or hanging out and talking and touching base. So it's pretty structured. Our weekends are pretty free. Our kids are only allowed one activity right now. So
Per child.
Yep. And honestly, we try to structure them. So right now is like the beautiful part of our lives is that they're all doing ice skating. So they all have the same lesson one night a week, and that is it. So when we hit like volleyball and softball season, life is a little more chaotic. But I love family. I love us being close, and I want them to want to hang out with us. So we try to make that fun, but we just don't structure a lot.
We've curated very thoughtfully a structure and a system that works well for you and for your kids, whether they know it or not. And I imagine that so many of the people that are going to be listening to these episodes are going to be moms who might be in our position, or people who aspire to be the mom of 5 who also has a very successful business. So as part of every episode, we ask the question to the guest, what advice would you share with the mom or the mom to be who aspires to have this life where they are present and powerful in both their professional business life and at home, what would you tell her?
You want to find someone who's doing it in aspects you want. It might not be everyone. So if you want a big family, you need to find big family moms and you need to talk to them and you need to figure out what they're doing, because that looks so much different than a mom of one. And if I compared myself to that mom of one, it's not going to work. So what I did is I found big family moms and I talked to them and I learned from them. If it's running a business, then you're going to find that mom who is running the business, and whether that's full or part-time. So it's finding those mentors and those friends in life. And it doesn't have to be formal by any means. And sometimes I think our society has gone a little too far in trying to formalize all of those relationships. But my best ones have come from just being aware of who's around me, seeking out those who maybe are doing what I want and are 5-ish years, 10-ish years ahead of me, and can be like, oh, I remember that. And this is what got me through.
Yeah, we need people who are a chapter or a season ahead of us to want to reassure that what's happening in our life is not crazy. And if it's crazy, it's our version of crazy, but it's also normal and something that they can lend guidance into navigating in the future. So I think that is such wonderful advice to share with people to surround themselves with, not just who they think they should be connecting with, but the people who are doing what you aspire to do in ways that are authentic and true to you and what you hold to be important. So Caitlin, I'm so glad that you were able to join today. As the new CEO of Prospera Strategy, where can people find and connect with you and the business?
Yes. So we are getting all the socials up and running. Those are all under just Prospera, so JUST, and then the company name. And I believe I'm going to hold on to my Instagram for a while. So that's just at Caitlin Eldridge. And as we migrate people over to just Prospera, I'll show up there a lot. But in terms of, I think, the pieces that'll still interest me, the tax laws and stuff, I'll still be hanging out over there.
And we are so thankful for that, myself included. Thank you so much for being on, Caitlin.
Thank you for having me.
I look forward to following this new exciting journey of yours and hope to stay in touch as you grow and learn what this new chapter of being a co-founder and a partner, how that supports your human design and your business goals moving forward.
I appreciate it. Thank you so much. I'm so honored to be here and I'm so excited for what you're doing.